Thank you everybody for joining us today. We are going over back to school with vault information for our presentation today. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. My name is Sarah Beth Russell. I'm going to be your main presenter today, and with me I have Hannah Gunderson. She is also a professional services specialist with me, and she will be in the chat today answering any questions. Also at this time, if you want to test out that question box, if you want to go ahead and put in what you're most looking forward to this fall, and we can make sure that is working for everybody, and then we'll go ahead and get started with any questions. If you have any before the end of the webinar, you can pop them in there and Hannah will be answering them, but we'll also have a Q&A at the end. But feel free to ask any questions throughout as well. I'm going to actually pass it over to Hannah, and she's going to give you a little background information on Omegafy, and then after that, we'll look at our agenda.
Hi, everybody. Like Sarah Beth said, I have just a quick overview of who Omegafy is. So Omegafy provides software solutions and services that help nearly 40 national headquarters, their chapters, and campus clubs and groups from more than 650 campuses manage finances, streamline operations, recruit members, and enhance communication. We've helped our clients process more than $6.8 billion in dues, rent, fees, and more since our founding 30 plus years ago. And we boast a 9 out of 10 customer satisfaction score. So we really appreciate that feedback that all of you give us, and we hope to keep that up and keep you guys satisfied as we move forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Looking at our agenda today, we're going to go over a few things to just get you started in the fall semester, kind of the most important things that you need to do to get set up. So we're going to go over roster updates, which we'll look at billing roster and member roster. There is a difference, so we'll look at what that is, and we'll look at officer updates as well as updating officers' permissions, and we'll look at setting up billing. And then we're going to have Q&A at the end where we will answer some questions live. Also, to go along with everything we have today, we have our checklist here in the email with the recording. We'll send this checklist as well, but these are some things that we're going to go over today. So as we're making updates to our different rosters, removing alumni, non-returning members, things like that, when we're updating our officers, the vault access, as well as making sure your billing and member statuses are up to date, and billing groups. So all of these are kind of just more in detail of all the things we're going to go over today. So now we'll go ahead and go over so we're going to start today by going over the member roster. On your member roster, you can look at that here. Your member roster is going to be different from your billing roster. Your member roster is what their actual member status is. Depending on your organization, this is going to be important for your national billing. So if your nationals gets your member information from Vault, you'll need to definitely make sure that you're updating your members accordingly. If somebody has graduated, you'll want to move them to alum so that your nationals is not billing you for that member. If you update that somewhere else, then you don't necessarily have to update it here, but it's nice to keep that updated so you know who's your new members, initiates, that sort of thing. But with your national billing, definitely make sure you are updating these accordingly. And again, some of you may make that on a different platform, and it will also, some of you may have it where it automatically will update that here if you make that on a different platform. So if you have somewhere you log in, you should know it. If not, you can always ask your client ops representative and they can let you know how to make those updates. When you're going to update the member status, you can go here to update member statuses. So anybody who, sometimes it'll show you like members, new members first. So anybody who's a new member, if they need to move over to an initiate, you'll put in their initiation date. Depending on your chapter, if you submit your initiation report through Vault, make sure you have done that. Sometime if you do submit it through Vault, most of the time you'll have to submit that, and then once it's approved, it'll automatically update your members from new member to initiate. But otherwise, if you don't submit that through here, then you'll need to put in their initiation date and then update their member status. Same thing with initiates. If you are updating them to alumnus for whatever reason, You can put the date of graduation, or if there's some other reason, you can put that as well and select the particular members, and then you will just go down to the bottom to update their status. Again, this is your member status, just showing if you're new member, initiate, alum, suspended, dissociated, depending on what that status may be. But next we'll look at billing status. But before we do that, we're going to look at adding your new members, because you do it under the same chapter tab here. So just know that your member status is important for your nationals mainly. So adding new members under the chapter tab, you can do that here. It's the second one down. Again, depending on what you see here, will be what you need to do. So if you see this add members in mass, you'll be able to add your members in Vault. If you don't have the option to add your members here, then more than likely you will add that on a different platform, and they will then cascade into Vault accordingly. So some of you may not have this option. For those of you that do, you'll go to add your members en masse, and you can download this template here, and it'll give you the information that you can upload with the file. Not all of it's needed, just anything that is asterisked on the add member will be what's needed in that file, but it'll have a bunch of different information you can upload. Then you'll just upload the file accordingly, and it'll pull in your new members. And that will be how you add your new members. Once they're in, you can build them accordingly. Also, for anybody who does not add members within Vault, you'll have to make sure that you assign them a billing group. So most of the time when you're going to add your new members, it'll ask you to give them a billing group. That's one of the required fields. So you'll automatically put them in a billing group when you upload them. For those who their new members are going to filter in from a different platform, they won't have a billing group coming in. So under billing, you'll assign members without a billing group, and you'll be able to see those there that don't have a billing group and assign them accordingly. Also under this billing tab here, this is where you're going to find your billing roster. So this is your member list by billing group, and this is also where you'll update your billing statuses. So to update your billing statuses, you'll go to this page here. Looks pretty similar to the member status. The billing status, though, the difference with that is that it's going to be how Omega Phi builds your chapter. So your per member fee will be through how many members you have on your roster listed as active billing. So that's the members that you're billing this semester. If somebody is no longer a part of the chapter, they've graduated, even if they have an outstanding balance, you want to go ahead and mark them inactive billing so that they don't get any new charges, and that way you're not charged for additional members on your Omega Phi fee. So anybody that needs to be marked inactive, you can just select them accordingly, and it'll change them to inactive. And you can also do different billing status reasons. So if you want to select everybody who's graduated, or let's say halfway through the pledge process you lose some of your new members, you can choose the depledge option, or suspended if somebody gets suspended, any of those. So you'll just do those separately. So if two people are graduating and then somebody else is for a different reason, you'll have to click the two people graduating, update the billing status, and then do the other for whatever other reason. So that is how you'll update your billing statuses there. If anybody's billing group has changed, so here you can see on some of the billing groups, we have new members, active, seniors, etc. If your billing group has changed, so let's say your new members that you maybe got in spring, they now need to be moved to initiate, you can update them under the same tab on update billing group. So you can choose what billing group they were previously in. So if you have new members, you can then select them to change into whatever billing group they now need to be in. Or for example, if you're active members, if there's a difference for seniors, there's a few people who are seniors, you'll need to update them to whatever billing group that is. So for this particular account we have, our seniors, I guess, have a different billing, so we would update them accordingly. Also, one other thing to look at back on the billing statuses, if they have this little red triangle next to them, you can see that you're not able to select them to update their billing status. That's because this person has Vault access. So if somebody has Vault access, you'll have to remove their Vault access accordingly, so they no longer have admin access, and then you can mark them in active billing. Next, we will look at your member login. So after you've added new members, you've updated billing statuses, put people in billing groups. For some of your new members, if you're not sure if they're getting their information or if they've set up their account accordingly to pay, you can always go over here to communications to your mass emails. And from here, you can send established access reminders. So anybody who hasn't set up their access, you can send them this email, and listed underneath here will show anybody who doesn't have their access set up. So currently this account, everybody who's listed has access set up. So you can also create an email list. But like I said, if anybody doesn't, the system will tell you, and then you can send that email. One more thing about adding new members. When you add your new members, I know I talked about on the billing status page your Omega 5 fee. When you add your new members, that will also increase your Omega 5 fee, so you'll get charged for your new members as well. So just remember that when you're adding them into the system, that you will have an Omega 5 fee for that. If you ever want to check your Omega 5 fee, you can go to view billing fee details under the accounting tab, and it'll show you your number. It'll look a little different than this. It'll tell you your number of members and then times whatever your per member fee is. Because this is a test account, it's not set up the same, but it'll show you like number of members, the amount charged per member, and then the total for the semester according to those numbers. Moving on, we're going to look at updating your officers accordingly. Under the chapter tab is going to be officers over on the far right hand side. When you click on that, this is where you can update the names of your officers. So you'll click to edit your officers. You can update them accordingly. If somebody is new, you'll click on them, and then you'll need to give them what dates they're serving from, and then just update officers. You can do this before somebody actually passes the baton. Their term is ending here, and it's like November, and you've already selected your new officer. You can go ahead and put that information in and just put their start date as January 1st. Also, back on that officers page, you can add an office. So it'll come with certain offices already there, but if you want to add an office, you can put in another officer type if you don't see one already there. So this will update in the system who is named a particular officer. So it'll show like Grant is the treasurer, but it doesn't update their Vault access. In order to do that, you'll need to go up here to the little gear icon. And actually, small correction, when you add them as an officer, it does grant them initial Vault for communications. So if they need like full Vault access, you're still going to have to update it, as well as you'll want to check this to make sure you're removing anybody who no longer needs Vault access each semester. So if somebody is no longer the treasurer and they don't hold any other office and they need to be removed from Vault access, this is where you would do that. So once you get on this page, you can see everybody who has access. There's a few different options. So like I said, if somebody no longer has a position, you could just delete them with the little trash can icon. If somebody is new, you can either add a user if they aren't maybe a listed officer, but they still need access, maybe an advisor, something like that. You can just add a user. If you have any contacts, they'll be listed here as well. So like I said, if you have like an advisor, you can add them accordingly, and then just put their reason, and you can update their access here and just give them whatever access they need for each tab. So each of these are according to the tabs and what they do. So let's say this person is the new treasurer, you're going to want to give them manage access to probably all of the tabs. If you don't have a nationals tab, you'll just do no access. But if they are maybe just like the social chair, then they may not need access to any of this other stuff, or maybe they'll need view access for some things. So you can adjust that accordingly to whatever access that officer is going to need. Also, if anybody has maybe just moved positions and they need more or less access than they had before, you can also just click the pencil icon to edit anybody's current access. This is going to update their Vault access for each of the tabs. If you guys use Bill Pay, though, you do have to do one extra step with that. So you'll go to the Bill Pay tab and user access. So Bill Pay is if you have any like accounts within Vault that you use to hold your money and pay bills, that sort of thing. So if you do, you'll have to go to Bill Pay Access, and then you will have to click to add somebody's access. So if they don't have access, you can update it accordingly and submit that. Once you do, they'll show in this list here, and you'll need to click on them again and just update their permissions. So you'll say grant all permissions, or if they only need to see certain things, you can edit that accordingly. And then depending on how many bill pay accounts you have, then you'll just grant them access to each of those. So this has a national dues and fees fund, and we also have an operating fund for this. So we'd grant them access to both of those if they need that. And then you can, depending on what access all they need, if they just need access to view the fund, you can do that, and no for the rest of them. And that is how you'll update their bill pay access as well. So that's important for any like incoming treasurers, especially. You'll need to give them that full access. If you do use bill pay and your officers normally have an officer purchasing card, if a old officer is leaving, if you need to update an officer purchasing card, you can cancel one on this page. It'll show you if you already have one out there. You can cancel it, or you can add a card for yourself or for someone else. So if you want to add it for the next upcoming user, you can click on them, submit, and get them that card ordered. And I believe if you're doing it for someone else, they'll have some information they'll need to fill out as well once you put that in for them. Make sure to do that, especially if the funds within bill pay are in your officer purchasing card or where you keep all your money. Then you'll need to make sure that's updated accordingly, so that way anybody who needs to spend that money using a card will have the access to that. You don't want to have the old treasurer's card. You want to make sure you have with the correct officer's name if you're the officer using that card. And the last thing that we'll go over today is setting up your billing. Billing is obviously pretty important to your chapter's operating. When you're setting up your billing, you want to make sure that you are being pretty detailed with that. So under the billing tab, you can go to billing overview. That's the page we're looking at here. We have not been good about updating the billing, so we only just have fall 2023. But if we want to go ahead and set up fall 2024, we'll hit that setup billing. Once you hit that, it'll take you here to set up your specific term. So we're going to set up fall for 2024, and then you'll select your first due date accordingly. So if we want it on the 10th of the month, we can choose that, and it will pre-fill for all the rest to follow. If you want a slightly different schedule, you can always get with Client Ops, and they can help you adjust these dates accordingly. Just with the system, it's going to auto-generate all these dates specifically if you choose a certain due date. And then you can choose your late after date. So if the due date is the 10th, how many days after until they generate a late fee or it's considered late. You can change that. And then this also shows what your late fee is. If you need to change a late fee, then you can get with Client Ops to get that updated. This has percentage based, or you can also do like a fixed late fee depending on what you're wanting. Or if you don't want late fees at all, you can just deselect having late fees added. And if you need an extra cycle, you can add that as well, or delete it if you end up not needing it. So go ahead and hit next. It's going to ask you to copy over charges from a previous term. Once you do that, you can then edit them accordingly. This just makes it a little easier. If you have different fall and spring billing, then you can choose like for each fall and each spring, whatever the last fall or spring was. But this just makes it easier because it goes ahead and pulls in those charges, and then you can edit them accordingly. You can also add a billing group, but only on this screen. Once past this part of billing setup, you won't be able to add a billing group. You'll need to get in contact with a representative to be able to help you add a billing group or change the name of one. Here, we'll look at our billing groups. This is where you can edit the name or edit the charges. So let's say we need to edit the charges for active members. We'll hit edit, this is showing what fall 2023 is or was, and we'll scroll down to the bottom here. This is what was copied over from fall, and if we want to update that, then we can do so accordingly. Let's say chapter dues went up $50. You can adjust that, or if nothing's changed, you can leave it. IFC dues maybe are the same. National dues, or let's say nationals went to 150 and this is 200, just to give us a nicer number. And then as you can see, we've also added here an Omega Phi fee and an accounting fee. So when you're doing your budgeting, you're probably already looking at this stuff, but you want to make sure you're factoring in how much the Omega Phi fee is. So whatever your per member fee is, you can list that as a line item on your billing, or you can factor into your chapter dues if you want. The line item just gives some transparency so you can see that money specifically. So we've added an Omega Phi fee to cover like our per member payment there. And we've also added an accounting fee. So the accounting fee is just going to be to cover card payments and ACH transaction fee. So credit card fees are charged by the card company, and those are 3.15 for Amex and 3.05 for all other card fees, and then ACH has the 1%. So you want to make sure you're factoring that in accordingly and billing enough for the accounting fee. Typically, you would do your total amount you're billing times, we normally do 3.08, gives you kind of a little bit of a buffer, and then round up. So you would do like the total times 0.0308. And that will give you like a roundabout accounting fee that will cover those charges. And then depending on how people pay, typically if you have less people pay by card, then it just gives you a little bit of a buffer. But you want to make sure you are including those into your budget. Again, it doesn't have to be line itemed out, but definitely make sure you are including it in your chapter dues if nothing else. Also, another thing you can line item out is your national dues and fees accordingly. So especially some of you may be required to itemize your national dues and fees. So we have the different options for that. All of these here, if you want to add a charge, you can add that accordingly. You can see we have a drop down. So let's say you charge rent as well. You can put the income account and then whatever you want the description to be, rent, and then however much that's going to be per cycle. So if it's $1,000 a month, you can do that for each cycle because your cycle is typically going to be about a month. Or if there's a fee you don't need, you can delete it. So we'll go ahead and save that accordingly. And let's say we looked at all the rest of these and everything looks good to go. So after you've edited each billing group, any names, added a billing group if you needed, you'll just hit next. And it'll just take you to review and approve that. So it'll give you one more chance to kind of look over everything, and then you can say save and complete, and your billing will be set up. And then this is basically the billing overview page where we started at, and it shows your fall cycle, and that will go out. It'll show you like your statement date and everything, so that'll go out like in the next week. So that is all for setting up your billing. So just a reminder with that though, your inactive members, they will get statements as well if they have an outstanding balance, but they won't get new charges. I know we talked about that, updating statuses. So even if they are inactive, if they still have a balance on their account, they'll still get a statement when statements go out. So on the 23rd, anybody who still has an outstanding balance, even if they're not getting new charges, they'll get a reminder for that outstanding balance. And if, let's say you add your new members and we have cycle 2 that new members are supposed to get charges, but maybe they came in a little after cycle 2 started, so they have missed their billing, you can back bill them by going into billing and add transactions to a group, and you can select a particular billing group. So if you put them in the correct billing group, you can select that, select your members, and then just say next step, and you just have to put in the transaction once, so your charge, whatever your description, however many line items, but you only have to put the line item in once and it'll give it to all the members that you selected. Put the description, if it's maybe your, let's see, your national dues, like their initiation fee, or their new member fee, put the amount, and then you'll just hit next step and it'll have you review it, and you can add it to all of those members in mass. Again, that is if they are added past their cycle. Now we're gonna go to our questions. So I'm gonna pull the PowerPoint back up with our contact information. So if anybody needs that, they can look at that while we're going through the questions. Anna was having some technical difficulty, and I think she may have gotten dropped from the webinar. So let me look at any questions that we've had come through. So I do see a question regarding what I just went over with the new members. So they were saying, can you just move their charges rather than like adding the billing? So you can move charges to a different cycle. So if you go to edit your charges, let's say your new members were added after the 25th, so they didn't get this billing, you can just move all your charges over to cycle 3, and then they will get them accordingly. So if you have any in cycle 3 that need to move to 4, just make sure you do those as well, but you can move those over a cycle, so that way when the next set of statements go out, they will automatically have those added to them. So rather than adding that transaction in mass, you can just move the cycle that they get the charges in. Either way will give them that billing. We have one other question that I saw about adding new members. If they're asking about, do I have to fill out my like new member report? So not everybody does a new member report within Vault, but if you do, if you have like initiation reporting and new member reporting within Vault, it'll be under your chapter tab, and you'll add them accordingly and put in your report. This is also, I know I kind of mentioned earlier, when you add your members, when you go to update them later to initiate rather than new member, you may have to finish your initiation report, and then once it's approved, it will update them. But it'll be under the chapter tab if you do have that option. I think that is all the questions that I see out there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put our information back up here. If anybody needs that, this is our email, operationsupport@omegafy.com. So if you have any questions, I know there was a few times I mentioned today that if you're unable to do certain things in the system and you need to reach out, you can reach out to our client ops team. That's that operations support email. They'll be more than happy to help. And if you need to give us a call, you can call the 800 number here, and we have our text line here. Also, you can use the Get Help option in the app. So just show you right here is the Get Help. That will take you to our knowledge base. We have a bunch of articles out here that can help you out search. There's something specific you need. And with that, we also have, if you're a newer officer, you click here, we have several different checklists that you can go through to kind of help you out. But we have that, as well as you can submit a request here that will also send an email to operations support to get you some additional help. One other reminder really quick, your tax filing, depending on your nationals, you may not have to file because HQ might do a group filing, but you might want to double check, ask an advisor or your LC or whatever it may be before you file. But if you have that coming up, make sure you're submitting those. We do have a few year ends coming up for due. So I think if your year end was in June or if it was in July, those are coming up. So make sure you are filing your taxes to keep tax exempt status. And I think that is pretty much everything. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.